On that terrifying day, when I first opened my eyes after the accident, what would my answer have been? When I think back on this day many years from now, will I wish that my answer had been different? It doesn't matter. Here, at this moment, there is no doubt in my mind. Who was that? I asked Saya, looking at the unidentifiable pieces of the monster.
A man living next door. I don't know his name, though.
Oh, so it was Suzumi-san. He wasn't a stranger, of course. I'd spoken with him any number of times, and had even been friendly with him before the accident. And now I've killed him with my own 2 hands. I feel little. Suzumi-san, the kindly painter who lived next door, is but a distant memory. The pieces of meat around me, on the other hand, belonged to a loathsome creature whose mere existence was nauseating. Only by killing the vermin could I find relief. He complained about my yard being filthy or something, didn't he? The swine. It doesn't matter what Saya did. He wasn't worth keeping alive anyway. Good riddance. These are my honest feelings. Even with a man's blood covering my hands, I am completely calm. Now, I know what I lost in the accident. Saya says that I can take it back, but I know that I cannot. It is gone forever, like the life of the man I called Suzumi. Hey, Saya, no doctor could possibly fix my condition, you know.
Fuminori?
You can do easily what no human is capable of. You're not human, are you? Saya looks away, her expression unreadable. Everything appears warped to my eyes. Only Saya looks normal. I thought that she was somehow unique. However, I was wrong. I see her just as I do everything else, as something completely different than what she really is. Saya is who she is because of who I am. Just like I said a few minutes ago. It's nothing to be surprised about. I stand and walk over to Suzumi's dismembered corpse. I read this manga a long time ago. It was about a man who recovered from an accident only to find that he could no longer see the world as it was. Kind of like me. I finally realized that, even though the stench of these monsters' flesh turns my stomach, their blood and guts smell pretty good. In fact, I know this fragrance quite well. He saw people as rocks, and robots as beautiful women. And so he fell in love with a robot that wasn't even remotely human. I retrieve the cleaver, pick up one of the pieces of Suzumi's body, and start removing the skin and tendons. Just as I thought. The stuff underneath looks exactly the same as the stuff Saya and I have been eating. Hey, this looks pretty good. Why don't we eat it?
Fuminori.
Oh, sorry. You're in no mood for that now, are you? Now that it's dead, though, meat is meat. It'd be a waste to throw it away, wouldn't it? Let's get it in the fridge.
Is that all right with you?
Sure, I answer easily. There's no longer any room for doubt in my mind, after all. Also, his wife and daughter are probably next door. They might cause trouble when he doesn't come home. I think we'd better hunt them down before they go to the police.
Is that really what you want?
Saya asks again, this time with a trace of fear in her voice. I guess I still haven't convinced her of my sincerity. So, at the end of this manga, the man who fell for something inhuman gave up his own humanity for the sake of their love. A happy ending, don't you think?
Fuminori.
As long as we're together, I don't need anything more. Everything is fine the way it is. Tossing the knife and meat aside, I pull Saya into my arms once more. I can say it now, can't I? Saya, I love you. As Saya tries to wipe away the tears that keep flowing from her eyes, I can no longer see any hint of fear in her face.
I don't want you to regret this. I don't, but...
I have sworn my oath, and Saya has accepted it. We have nothing to be afraid of now. Saya will never need to cry again.
Even so, I'm happy. I guess I'm pretty selfish, aren't I?
I don't mind. I'll always indulge your selfishness, Saya. Filled with contentment, we exchange a smile and set to the task of cleaning the room. A single person produces a lot more meat than I expected. Speaking of which, I seem to remember doing something similar before.
About the other two, I think he killed them. I heard their screams.
Well, that makes things easier. After we finish here, we should go gather the meat from the Suzumi house. That should be enough to hold us for a while. But, can we pack it all into the refrigerator? Of course. We can just use the refrigerator next door.
This picture, I recognize it.
After we finish our labors and get into bed, I show Saya what I found in the Ogai house.
This one looks familiar. Yeah, I've definitely been there.
The photograph that Saya has selected from the three is the one with the Tochigi Prefecture address written on the back. This is a house, right? I see trees and mountains?
Yeah. Oh, wow, Fuminori, you can see pictures now?
A little. At the outset of my ordeal, I had to depend entirely on my sense of distance to decipher what I saw. The houses in front of me, the mountains far behind them, the clouds high above. Only distance and scale told me what they were. Photographs and other flat images used to be completely incomprehensible to me. Recently, however, I've gotten better at understanding what things are by their shape. I know what the mountains and sky look like, for example, and how they are different from buildings. Each of the three pictures shows a similar scene. A lone house in the middle of a forest. They must be vacation retreats or something.
Dad called it his cabin. He said that no one would find us there.
If the addresses on the back of the photos belong to each building, then they probably are excellent places to stay hidden from prying eyes. But why three? The dates are pretty old, and it seems odd that they were all taken within a few days of each other. Maybe he was taking photos of houses he was thinking of buying in order to determine which would be the best candidate for his hideaway. And Saya only recognizes one of the houses. So Ogai decided on the house in Tochigi Prefecture, S-Town. Checking the location on a road map of the Kanto area, I find that it's about 3 hours out of Tokyo by car. Do you think your father will be there?
I tried calling him, but he didn't answer. I don't think he's there.
But he might have stopped by recently. The way I see it, the only way out of this deadlock is to take whatever chance we have, no matter how small. The probability of there being a clue to Professor Ogai's whereabouts in his villa is very low, but it's not zero. I think I'll check this place out tomorrow. Saya pouts. I wasn't expecting Saya to object.
But isn't it far away?
It'll only take about half a day to go there, check it out, and come back.
I'll have to stay home by myself while you're gone.
So that's what it is. Slightly exasperated, I smile and rub Saya's head. Be a little patient, okay? You want to find your father too, don't you? After a brief silence, during which her expression is hard to decipher, Saya timidly looks up at me and says,
Hey, Fuminori. Let's forget about Dad.
Huh? I'm completely blindsided by this. Forget about him. But he's your father, right? Aren't you worried about him?
Not anymore.
Saya says, coming closer to feel my warmth.
I have you now. I call him Dad, but he's not really my father. He taught me a lot and probably loved me in his own way, but you're kinder and warmer.
Saya's words make me happy, but I also feel the loneliness in them. Are you really all right with just me?
don't like it just being the two of us?
I do, but I also want to meet Professor Ogai. Having finally figured out how to explain my feelings, I continue. I want to get to know you better, Saya. If there's someone who knows more about you than me, I have to meet them.
I see.
Saya doesn't seem angry, but she does tilt her head quizzically, as though my thoughts are strange to her. And I also want to. Yeah, I'm going to check it out tomorrow. Another plan has started to form in my mind. One separate from the search for Professor Ogai. If I find the professor there, great. If I don't, well, I think I can find another use for his mountain retreat. I know you'll be lonely, Saya, but try to bear it for a little while.
Okay.
She nods, then looks questioningly into my eyes.
Fuminori, you really want a family and friends. More people that you can spend time with, don't you?
Well, that would be more fun, yeah. Fearing that Saya will start sulking, I hurriedly add, but don't get me wrong, even if I could have lots of friends and family, you'll always be special to me.
I know. Thanks.
Giggling, Saya rubs her cheek against mine.
I'll find something to make you happy. Something just for you.
Today, all of Kouji's classes were in the morning. On his way to meet Yo for lunch after the final lecture, Kouji suddenly gets a phone call in the middle of the hallway. Without thinking, he reaches to his belt for his new camera phone, but curses when he realizes that the ringtone is coming from the old phone in his bag. He bought a camera phone to see what all the rage was all about, but he couldn't bring himself to discard his simple, much easier to use old phone, so he ended up walking around with both. He hasn't transferred his contacts list yet, and calls still come to his old phone from people who don't know the new number. When he finally fishes his phone from his bag, the name he sees on the display sends a chill up his spine. Fuminori. Why now? What does he want? It's hard for Kouji to be happy about a call from Fuminori now, long after he gave up on such a thing being possible.
Yes?
Hey, Kouji. You're done with class today, right?
Yeah?
Of course, Fuminori would know that Kouji always has a lot of free time on Thursday afternoons.
I have something to talk to you about. Can you come to the parking lot?
Now?
Yeah. I'll be waiting.
Fuminori hangs up without another word.
What's gotten into him? What does he want?
Kouji wonders as he sticks the phone into his jacket pocket. This sudden change is disturbing after a week of Fuminori clearly trying to avoid both Kouji and Yo. Maybe he's finally ready to talk. In which case, Kouji should probably consider this a good thing. However, he can't shake his unease completely.
Did I keep you waiting?
Nah.
In the parking lot, Kouji finds Fuminori leaning against the fender of Kouji's Accord. This is the first time he's seen Fuminori since the night at the mysterious abandoned house. It's been a long time since they've spoken face to face in the light. Perhaps that's why Kouji senses something strange in Fuminori's expression. He's not sure what exactly, but something has definitely changed.
I think I told you before that I'm currently looking for information on a man named Ogai.
So I've heard.
Well, it's starting to get more complicated. It looks like I can't handle it by myself after all.
Fuminori seems more relaxed than before. He used to be tense all the time, like he was terrified of something. But now his expression is calm. And he's even wearing what resembles a sheepish grin.
So, I need your help, Kouji.
Nevertheless, some instinct is telling Kouji that Fuminori's changes are not at all for the better.
Why the sudden change of heart?
Kouji asks, keeping his expression neutral to conceal his suspicion.
You're involved too, aren't you?
Fuminori responds coolly. His smile, unreadable as ever, offers no glimpse of his true motives.
You searched Professor Ogai's house after me, didn't you? It's a waste of time for us to look for him separately. It'll be more efficient if we team up.
Why? Why does there seem to be malice, thick and vicious, lurking beneath Fuminori's smile?
Anyway, I need your car today. Mind driving?
Well, no.
Fuminori's car was destroyed in the accident, so Kouji isn't surprised that he'd need a lift. Kouji unlocks his Accord and gestures for Fuminori to take the passenger seat, then gets behind the wheel and starts the engine.
Well, where are we going?
North Tochigi, near the Nasu Heights.
Tochigi?
Even Kouji can't conceal his surprise at this.
Here's the address.
Fuminori says, handing Kouji a photo with an address on the back.
I want you to find this building.
Rather than be angry at Fuminori, Kouji is simply amazed that he seriously expects to be driven over 100 kilometers.
If we leave now, we should get there by evening, right?
Yeah, maybe.
Kouji sighs heavily, tapping the steering wheel as he calms himself down. Now that he's come this far, the only thing he can do is see his friend's craziness through to the end.
Is this a vacation house or something?
Probably. Professor Ogai should be there.
Kouji isn't looking forward to meeting the owner of that strange house, but he's even more uneasy about letting Fuminori go alone. It looks like he just has to grin and bear it.
We might not get back until night.
Sorry for the trouble.
Don't mention it.
Kouji drives out of the parking lot, leaving the rest of what he'd planned to say unspoken. Fuminori's smile seems somehow wrong, like an emotionless mask glued to his face. Yo finds herself sitting alone in the cafeteria, searching for a familiar face as her lunch cools on the table in front of her. It's not as though she and Kouji planned to meet, and it wouldn't be at all unusual for him to have another engagement. When he hadn't been able to show up in the past, Omi and Fuminori would pick up the slack. But neither Omi nor Fuminori is here anymore. Yo puts down her chopsticks, her appetite ruined by the lack of company, and even more so by the anxiety eating at her. She knows that Omi's absence isn't because of some illness or unavoidable business. She doesn't know why Fuminori suddenly turned against her. If Kouji were here, she would count on him to distract her from her worries with some idle conversation. Now that she's all by herself, Yo becomes keenly aware of how little tolerance she has for loneliness. She begins to feel paranoid, like the world itself is plotting to steal everything from her. What exactly is going on here? Where has Omi gone? Is Fuminori really uninvolved? Or is he the key to this mystery, like Kouji and Dr. Tanbo suspect? You will never forget what happened last Thursday. Alone and without an outlet for her pain after Fuminori verbally eviscerated her, Yo had been lucky enough to catch sight of Kouji. Concerned, he had listened to her and, although he could hardly make her problem go away, his kindness had comforted her. At the same time, Omi had been on her way to Fuminori's house, and she hasn't been heard from since. Yo has only been aware of Fuminori's connection to Omi's disappearance since yesterday, when the truth has been revealed during their visit to T University Hospital. What if... Yo considers a new possibility, trying to get the answer to the question, why did Omi suddenly decide to go to Fuminori's house? What if it hadn't been a coincidence that Yo had run into Kouji that day? What if Kouji and Omi both knew what had happened between her and Fuminori, and had decided to act separately? Omi might have seen the confrontation in the courtyard. She might have been eavesdropping. It's not unthinkable. As the idea forms in her mind, Yo feels as though something is tearing apart her body from the inside. It's only a possibility, but if it's true, then whatever happened to Omi is Yo's responsibility too, isn't it? Yo clutches her head, groaning in agony. The food she brought out on her tray is now cold. Not that she would have eaten it anyway. His Despite the frustration and anxiety tormenting her, Yo was unable to act on her own. She's never been very flexible, nor is she known for her sharp intuition. She hasn't the slightest idea how to respond to the situation. If Omi were here, she would probably tell Yo to think positive and trust her instincts. It was always dependent on her best friend's energy. Now that Omi is gone, Yo realizes just how weak and useless she is. Powerless to stop herself, she can only sink deeper and deeper into a vicious cycle of self-loathing. The sudden sound of her cell phone ringing is what pulls her back from the brink of despair. It's a text message. There's no title, and the sender is...
Omi-chan?
Yo cries out in shock. The message itself, however, is even more baffling. The message bears no trace of Omi's personality, but Yo can't deny that it was sent from Omi's phone. She takes a deep breath to calm herself before typing her reply, taking care that excitement doesn't cause her fingers to slip.
Is that you, Omi-chan? Where are you?
Yo presses send. The screen shows that her message was received successfully. As she waits for a reply, her mind fills with questions. Is someone else using Omi's phone to send text messages? If so, why to her? Something suddenly occurs to her. She and Omi have exchanged countless messages, many of which contain the sort of embarrassing confessions that close female friends share. At times when her hidden feelings for Fuminori grew too strong to contain, he will often put them into words for Omi to read. Did Omi put a password on her phone? Even if she had, the person who sent the message was obviously able to unlock it, which means that whoever it was has full access to the messages that she and Omi have sent to each other.
Do you want to know more about Sakisaka Fuminori?
Yo reads the strange message one more time. Whoever sent it must believe that Yo has an interest in Fuminori. The phone suddenly rings again, startling Yo, but she quickly recovers and looks at the screen. There's no title, and the sender is still Takahata Omi. It's not Omi. She would never try to scare Yo with such a mean-spirited prank. Anxiety has brought Yo to tears. Her mind isn't made to deal with such an incomprehensible situation. Who is using Omi's phone and promising to reveal Fuminori's secret? Who is it? Yo is helpless on her own. She desperately wants advice from Kouji, from anyone. She even starts to dial Koji's cell, but a sudden suspicion stops her. The sender might be somewhere nearby, watching her this very moment. Cold chill runs down her spine as she looks furtively around the cafeteria. The lifeless characters on her screen are like a knife against her throat. However, Yo clutches her phone and forces her heart to stop pounding. Isn't this cowardice exactly what she was just cursing herself so mercilessly for? Doesn't she want to know what she's capable of? Doesn't she want to do more than just sit and wait? Yo realizes that her hand holding the phone is shaking. How easy would it be to just give in to her cowardice, to convince herself that everything, even Omi and Fuminori, is beyond her reach. That's what she truly wants. Even if it means abandoning all sense of dignity or loyalty. She wants to flee from the unknowable. However, she also knows that even escape is beyond her. Yo understands herself well. She knows that, no matter how far she runs, regret and self-loathing will consume her after everything has fallen to pieces. In the end, Yo is unable to overcome her cowardice alone. She lacks both the willpower and the courage to run. The silence of the afternoon neighborhood seems somehow forbidding. A stink is in the air, as though someone's garbage has been left out for a long time. Even this perfectly normal residential area appears ominous to Yo in her current state. She feels like she's standing in the middle of a ghost town, where everyone in the surrounding houses has died. Yo pushes her fear aside and presses the buzzer on the Sakisaka house's front gate. She didn't see Fuminori in class today. Is he at home?
He couldn't be the one who sent those awful messages. Could he?
She doesn't even want to consider the possibility, so she forces the unwelcome thought from her mind. There's no response from the intercom. Yo doesn't know, of course, that Omi stood in the same place 1 week ago, staring at the silent intercom with the same confusion that Yo is experiencing now. Yo, however, is not forced to wait as Omi was. The phone in her pocket suddenly rings, catching her completely off guard. It's another entitled text message from Omi's phone. Yo looks around quickly, a shiver running through her as she realizes that she's being watched. Searching fearfully for her observer, Yo spots movement out of the corner of her eye. On the second floor of the Sakisaga house, a tightly drawn window curtain just fluttered slightly. The watcher, the person who's been sending the messages, is inside the house. Only now does Yo realize that every other window has its storm shutters completely closed. No matter what happens inside, no one will ever know. This time, she is nearly overwhelmed by the intense urge to run away and never look back. However, the terror she feels towards the invisible eyes staring at her is many times more powerful. She has nowhere to run. Yo bursts into tears, unable to take one step forward or back. The phone rings again in her hand, as though demanding that she enter the house at once. She steps through the gate, her legs so shaky that they hardly seem connected to her. When she enters the house, an undeniable stench assaults her nostrils. The house is dark, even though it is the middle of the day. Fuminori must be out, as his shoes are not in the vestibule. However, Yo catches sight of a different pairs of shoes stuffed behind the shoe cupboard. They look familiar, so she pulls them out of the shadows for a closer look. As soon as she recognizes them, her mind tries desperately to find a way to deny reality. They are definitely the same as Omi's favorite shoes. Yo has seen her wearing them any number of times. However, that doesn't mean that Omi is here in this house. They might belong to someone entirely different. Someone who brought the same shoes from the same store. There's no way that Omi could be here. In a sudden flash of insight, Yo presses the most frequently used speed dial button on the phone, still in her tightly clenched hand. The phone dials Omi's number. It takes only a second for the signal to reach the nearest relay station, and then a familiar melody echoes through the house. The unmistakable sound of Omi's phone. It's coming from the second floor. Someone must still be up there in the room with the moving curtains. Omi's phone only rings for a few moments, and then it stops, as though whoever is holding it realizes Yo's intentions. For the first time, Yo feels the definite presence of her formless guide.
Who's there?
She gathers her courage and calls out into the house, but there is no response. Whoever it is must not want to be seen. Swallowing hard, Yo walks down the hallway to the staircase. Maybe it's Omi. Maybe it's Fuminori. Surely it's just the two of them playing a prank on her. Kouji might even be here with them. Yo's mind fills with comforting images. Whether or not they're possible, she wants to believe in them. Otherwise, she would not be able to take another step.
Omi-chan, is that you? Sagisaka-san, are you there?
As she climbs the stairs one at a time, Yo calls out in a voice choked with tears. When they see her sobbing, they'll probably laugh and make fun of her. Let them. It would be the happiest moment in her life. She just wants this torment to end as quickly as possible. She tries to move faster, but her trembling legs force her to move at an agonizingly slow pace, dragging the crushing silence out even longer. With each second, she begs for release from this nightmare. After enduring what seems like an eternity of stillness, Yo finds herself standing in the second-floor hallway. No sound greets her. There is only the gloom, brimming with silent malice.
Omi-chan? Omi-chan?
She shuffles forward, calling out in a weak voice.
Come out already. Please. I can't take
door in front of her is half open. It probably leads to the room that overlooks the front gate. You watches helplessly from a corner of her mind as her body, seemingly to move of its own volition, slowly opens the door. The room is empty. The damp, stinking air clings to Yo's skin.
Please, stop this.
She's at her limit, unable to take a single step more. Her spirit has been completely crushed. Perhaps her tormentor was only waiting for this very moment. Something grabs Yo's arms from behind. Something flexible and strong, like slime-covered rubber. As the thing binds her lips, finger-like appendages tear roughly through her blouse and force their way inside. Yo screams at the top of her lungs, amazed that she still has the strength to do so. Responding to her distress, primal energy surges through her body as she flails wildly, trying to free herself. The grip of the thing behind her remains unbreakable. With escape impossible, Yo can only scream even louder as something cold and wet slips under her bra and wraps itself around her breasts. Yo is helpless to resist as the invader mercilessly squeezes her breasts and sucks at her nipples, which have gone stiff with fear under the horrifying onslaught. Her ears are filled with the sound of something slimy sliding over her skin and between her breasts. As the loathsome assault on her breast continues, the unimaginable terror threatens to drive you utterly mad. Her throat is already raw from screaming, and now she can't even breathe as she struggles desperately against her attacker. Suddenly, the thing releases its grip on her breast and pulls out from under her bra. Yo falls to the floor, unable to support herself on her unresponsive legs. Having used up all of the strength that her body held in reserve, she is now a marionette with the strings cut. The creature that just grabbed her from behind is still there, lurking in a dark corner of the room. Yo can feel it watching her, but she can't bring herself to turn around. She knows full well that seeing it will likely destroy the last vestiges of her sanity. From close by comes the muffled tapping of buttons being pressed. Yo hears a cheerful electronic sound, terribly out of place in the room, and sees the phone in her hand blinking coldly. A new text message has arrived. She is powerless to stop herself from reading the characters on the screen. Now she has her answer. The messages from Owen's phone were sent by the thing that just mauled Yo's breasts.
Let's Start Project.